Senator Tom Cotton represents the great state of Arkansas. He's a member of the Armed Services Committee. He is chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee, good friend of the program. Senator Cotton, I want you to go back to your Army days when you were with 101st in Baghdad. Israel announced today that they're going to fully occupy and control Gaza, which is 141 square miles. That's about the size of Manhattan, and throw in Brooklyn and the Queens. How difficult a job is that?
Hugh, it's going to be a very challenging job, but it's also a necessary job, and it's one that I'm confident the IDF and the security services of Israel are up to. Gaza is still controlled by Hamas. They're trying to regain their strength, and Israel has to root them out entirely if they want to live at peace in the future and not risk another October 7th style attack. So it's going to be a challenging operation, but obviously the IDF operating not just in Gaza for the last 18 months, but being battle-hardened for decades is up to the task.
Now, when you're in Baghdad, obviously they did not have, or maybe they did and I didn't know about it, a subterranean network of tunnels. Any idea how you go about securing the above-ground space when the underground space is full of guys with Kalashnikovs?
No, not to my knowledge, Hugh. At least in our sector, we never faced that kind of very dangerous network of tunnels. I think at this point, you can say that Israeli Defense Forces as well as the intelligence services have a fairly good idea about the extent of that tunnel network. Not an entirely good idea, not a perfect knowledge of it. So they'll come into portals that they have not yet mapped out. But it starts with securing all the portals that are mapped out and then very promptly securing them in ways that are irreversible. And you can imagine what you can do with that, whether it's iron gates or concrete or what have you. And then there's techniques for tunnel warfare as well. We shouldn't forget, of course, there are still hostages being held there. And hopefully the pressure that Israel puts on Hamas in Gaza in the days and the weeks ahead can save some more of those hostages' lives.
Now, Senator, the Ben Gurion Airport was almost directly hit by the Houthis. Missed it, hit an empty field, thank goodness, but almost direct hit on them. They could try the same thing with our carriers. We got 2 in the Gulf, and we're hitting them every day, but they are still able to get off a ballistic missile. Is bombing the Houthis the real solution, or is that solution in Iran?
Well, ultimately, as the president has said, as the Secretary of Defense said just last week, this comes from Iran. Where did a bunch of goat-herding rebels in Yemen get land attack cruise missiles and ballistic missiles? They got them from Iran. First, they were provided them directly, and over time, they were trained and taught how to manufacture them themselves. We have some intelligence gaps still in Yemen, in most part, because Joe Biden's administration deprioritized intelligence collections against those rebels. But the Trump administration is rightly trying to rebuild that intelligence picture very quickly so we can finish off these rebels in Yemen, and not just their fighters, but their weapons depots and their manufacturing sites. But as the president said, when you see a missile coming out of Yemen, you should really think of it as coming out of Iran, because if it wasn't for Iran financing these rebels and providing them the weapons and teaching them how to make their own weapons, they wouldn't be able to attack our ships at sea. They wouldn't be able to attack our friends in Israel.
Okay, now here's what the president told Kristen Welker this weekend about Iran. Cut number 12, please, Harley.
Is the goal of these talks limiting Iran's nuclear program or total dismantlement?
Total dismantlement.
That's all you'll accept?
That's all I'd accept. Now, there's a new theory going out there that Iran would be allowed to have civilian, meaning to make electricity. But I say, they have so much oil, what do they need it for? But, I've seen it with other states where they're looking to do something and they have a lot of oil. Iran has tremendous energy. I put sanctions, if you know that. I put pretty strong sanctions on 2 days ago on the oil. It's a very simple deal. I want Iran to be really successful, really great, really fantastic. The only thing they can't have is a nuclear weapon. Okay. If they want to be successful, that's okay. I want them to be so successful. And, the Iranian people are incredible. I just don't want them to have a nuclear weapon because the world will be destroyed.
So, Senator Cotton, does that mean to your ears that they have to turn over every bit of enriched uranium that they produced and destroy their centrifuges?
But Hugh, I think that means not just to my ears, but anyone who can understand plain English, and that's what the president specializes in, and he's said this for a decade now. He doesn't speak like other Republican presidents in the past have, in which they said, well, we might have a deal, but if it's a bad deal, we'll have to keep all options on the table. No, he says you're either going to get a good deal in which you can live happily without death, or there will be bombing. It's just as plain as day. And he laid out the contours there of what he said for 10 years a good deal is. Iran cannot have centrifuges and enrichment capabilities. They have no reason to enrich uranium other than to build a weapon. And as the Secretary of State said last week, it really doesn't matter if they have the ability to enrich to 3.67% or 20 or 60 or 90 or anything else. If they have the centrifuges and they have the enriched uranium, they have a path to a nuclear weapon. If they don't have the centrifuges and they don't have the uranium, then they don't have a path to a nuclear weapon. And that's why the president has been so consistent and so clear as he was yesterday on Meet the Press.
So how long does it take to get to impasse, do you think? To me, it seems like you could ask them, let's see you destroy the centrifuges and put it on tape, and we want to be there with you and give us the uranium, or don't. It doesn't seem like it should take very long, does it?
It shouldn't take very long, Hugh, and Iran has consistently refused to end its enrichment program and to turn over its enriched uranium and its centrifuges for at least a decade in which I've been working to stop Iran from getting nuclear weapons. But, back in the era of Obama's negotiations, many countries in the region said, well, whatever you agree to with Iran, you would have to grant us as well. So, for instance, Saudi Arabia would say, well, we would have to get the right to enrich uranium and get centrifuges and just be a few steps away from a nuclear weapon if you gave that to your arch enemy, Iran. You might turn it the other way and say, well, there are countries in the region like the United Arab Emirates who have civilian nuclear power, who have agreements with the United States about that nuclear power, and those are considered the gold standard. So we have that already packaged up. You might put it to the Ayatollahs and say, well, if you're serious and genuine, and all you want is a civilian nuclear power, how about you get what these other countries have and see what they say? I think that would be very quickly and easily calling their bluff.
I hope they do that. Very quickly, Senator, from your position on Senate Intel Without Compromise, are you relaxing about the India-Pakistan confrontation, or are you still on edge about that?
Well, I'm never fully relaxed about tensions between India and Pakistan, Hugh, and it's probably the one potential point of tension in the world that I pay close attention to, and most normal Americans don't think about it because they think, understandably, about Iran's nuclear program or the war in Ukraine. But there's long, deep, simmering tensions between those two countries, and they're both nuclear armed now. So it's something that I always pay close attention to, and I know the president and the senior leaders in his administration are working on that very carefully to try to defuse those tensions and avoid any kind of conflict there.
We'll keep an eye on that. Thank you, Senator Cotton.